part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
All right, here we are, the very first episode of the Fanfare Podcast. I'm Chase Smith, host of the Chase Smith Podcast and Cavs on the Break NBA Podcast here in the Press Play Podcast Network.
And I am JD, host of the Hyman Podcast, also on the Press Play Podcast Network. And we are so excited for what we have in store today.
All right, JD, we've been talking about this podcast for almost 2 years.
Literally 2 years.
And it's taken an Indiana Jones movie to get this podcast off the ground. Indiana Jones, The Dial of Destiny is being released on June 30th, a mere handful of days away. And JD, we're going to be movie grading Raiders of the Lost Ark together right here. We had to rewatch it. I cannot wait. But before we get to the grades, everyone wants to know the grades. Everyone wants to know the grades, JD. I want you to I want you to break down the movie because you have just such a way with words, and I can't wait to hear JD's breakdown of Raiders of the Lost Ark. And then we're going to talk about the movie, some of our favorite scenes, just other conversation points, and then we'll get to the grades. But JD, also warning, we're going to be spoiling this movie. So if you haven't seen Raiders of the Lost Ark, this would be a really interesting podcast to listen to. But if you have, I think you're really going to enjoy it. JD, explain to us what happens in Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark.
All right. Raiders of the Lost Ark is the first movie in the Indiana Jones franchise. It was directed by Steven Spielberg and written by Lawrence Kasdan, and it's based on a story by George Lucas and Philip Kaufman. The film stars Harrison Ford as the titular character, Dr. Indiana Jones. Other cast members include Karen Allen, Paul Freeman, Ronald Lacey, Jonathan Rhys-Davies, and Denholm Elliott. It was produced by Frank Marshall, distributed by Paramount Pictures, and made its theatrical release on June 12th, 1981, 42 years ago. With a budget of $20 million, it grossed $390 million in the box office, making it the highest grossing film that year. The film was nominated for 9 Academy Awards, winning 5 of those, including Best Art Direction, Best Film Editing, and Best Visual Effects. Today, the film maintains a score of 93% on Rotten Tomatoes and an 8.4 rating on IMDb. The plot. The year is 1936, and the intrepid archaeologist Indiana Jones sets out in search of the fabled Lost Ark of the Covenant, racing a bitter rival and his Nazi cohorts to the prize. Over the course of a hair-raising adventure, Indy endures explosions, spiders, snakes, booby traps, and bad guys in his quest to save the Holy Relic. This is Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yo. There it is, man. That's the podcast. It's all we needed to do.
Funny thing is, I learned in researching this episode, this movie spent over a year in theaters.
Yeah.
I've never known a movie to spend that long in theaters. It spent so long in theaters that it left theaters 1 week before the Academy Awards.
It's incredible.
Insane.
Spielberg, it's hard not to talk about Spielberg and Harrison Ford without, any conversation with Raiders of the Lost Ark. Spielberg, before this, had done 3 movies, I believe. This was his 4th movie. He had done, I think 1941, Close Encounters, E.T. and Jaws. So this might be in his 5th movie.
Yes.
All of those were straight bangers. I mean, it's not like all the but what was troubling was all of those had production issues. All of those went way over budget, shot way past their date. And Spielberg is on record an interview saying that his main goal for this was to make a fiscally responsible movie, just to get in and get out. And I think that it took him, I have it here in my notes. It took him like 70 days to shoot the entire movie.
Insanity.
Yeah. Just an incredible movie. You left out Alfred Molina and the Who's Who cast.
He was a big part of the movie.
Alfred Molina, Doc Ock, people might know him. Maybe his best role is Doc Ock. He's like in the first, then the cold open, the masterful cold open. We'll talk about that, I'm sure, here in a little bit.
Yeah.
As the guy who goes into the idol place with him, who leaves him in the pit.
High and Dry, and
Yeah.
yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah. Also Letterboxd, it's a 4.2 rating on Letterboxd.
Is it really?
So yeah, Letterboxd, for those of you who aren't aware, Letterboxd is a movie rating app that you can 1 through 5 stars leave reviews. You have a profile and it shows all the movies you've watched, all the movies you've reviewed. It's super cool. And so yeah, Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb, Letterboxd, some of the ways people just can review movies and share their thoughts and opinions. JD, what is your masterful job recapping a movie? That was brilliant. What's your relationship with this movie, man? What are some of the memories you have with Raiders of the Lost Ark? Let's talk.
I feel like, I don't know. I feel like this was one of the first movies that I saw.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, I don't know. I think back to the first films that I watched, and I feel like this was one of the first films that I watched, and I had absolutely no idea what the story was about. I just knew there was action, there was explosions, there were snakes, there was adventure. That was enough for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like also Raiders of the Lost Ark was always on TNT or something like that. Like it was always
gosh,
on cable
every weekend. It was like Fox's Saturday movie, every other Saturday.
Yeah. There were a handful of those movies growing up in the 90s that were just always on repeat. I think any number of the Rocky movies were just always on repeat. Indiana Jones. I just feel like there's always, and this was one of those movies. And I don't think there's a dry spot. There might be 15 or so minutes when he's in Egypt where you're like, yeah, whatever. But any other time you catch this movie, see someone watching it, or you just you're in, you're there. My memories are very similar. One of the there's a handful of movies I remember when I was a kid. One is Batman 89. I remember that. And Raiders, yeah. Rocky, and Rambo, Top Gunners, movies that my dad and I just watched all the time. It was just a family film. You didn't have to worry about too much, whether it was nudity or language. It was pretty gory, but it was a fun gory. It wasn't
it was an interesting gory.
They picked its spots to be gory. I mean, face melting is pretty gory and heads exploding is pretty gory. But what do you expect when you look at the Ark? I mean, that's what I would expect to see.
Somebody's head explode.
Yeah. So it was just something that my dad and I watched. It was corny enough that it was fun. And it was, not only is it an incredible movie, but as a sentimental movie as well. One of my favorite movies, JD, Raiders of the Lost Ark. It was, I think, one of the first DVDs I bought. And then also one of the first streaming movies I bought was Raiders. I just had to have Raiders.
I love this movie. I love the franchise in and of itself, with a few exceptions.
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk about that at some point.
Yep.
But I feel like this, like I said, this is one of the first movies I saw, and it just kind of sparked this joy of adventure and treasure hunting within me. And so movies like The Goonies came, I saw that and I was
mm-hmm.
super intrigued by
Produced by Spielberg.
It was this genre of adventure and not knowing what's going to happen next. And with this particular movie, there was always something happening. There was always some type of plot twist at every stage of the game. There was at no point did Indiana Jones just relax.
Yeah. No part. Even whenever he was tending to his bruises on the ship, on the pirate ship, one of the cheesiest but also sweetest love scenes somehow. He's falls asleep right at the beginning, and she's like, "Oh, we can never catch a break." Hey, I want to go over some stereotypes because you hit on something here, JD. It's an adventure movie, and I was watching some of the behind the scenes. George Lucas came up with this idea while shooting Star Wars: A New Hope. And
really?
Yeah, this was George Lucas's idea, and he would send it to his friends to make. And it just he just wanted to see the movie. It's what he talked about. And so he sent it to Spielberg, who wanted to do a globe-trotting adventure movie. And it was a perfect fit because they were already friends. And so George Lucas was very involved in the filming. And it was based this idea off of these like old like 1950 serials that they would watch that was like very very campy, very just like non-serious, but everyone in the movie's taking it serious, and it's a serious movie, but just like non-serious things happen. And it's that kind of like vein that they're trying to tap in. And I don't know if they could have found a more perfect Indiana Jones who could pull that off, this serious but not serious, this like ruggedly good looking, adventurous, handsome. He passes as a college professor, but he's also like this swashbuckling adventurer. Then Harrison Ford. Can we talk about Harrison Ford for a little bit?
I mean, yeah, why not?
It just super. I mean, he is the guy. I don't know if there's ever is there a cooler like person in cinema during like he's just super cool. I at least I thought he was. I don't know. I'm not like the like arbiter of coolness, but what a freaking cool guy, dude.
I can't even like picture anyone else being in that role.
Well, did you know who they had like hired before Harry? He wasn't the first Indiana Jones.
No, I did not. I was not aware of this.
JD. All right. Tom Selleck was originally cast to play Indiana Jones. Tom Selleck was originally cast. He couldn't continue or do the part because of a show called Magnum PI.
Oh, just that little program that was out.
A little old show, Magnum PI. He couldn't do it, so they got Harrison Ford.
It would not have been the same without Harrison Ford. I can't imagine this movie being. Yeah. I can't imagine this movie existing without Harrison Ford. It's just
crazy. I have to correct myself. E.T. came out after this. That is my fault. That is my fault. E.T. came out after this, so he had only done 3 movies before this: Close Encounters, 1941, Close Encounters, and Jaws, which were, I mean, still incredible, but
still bangers.
Yeah. So Harrison Ford makes anything look good, whether it's a college. Can we talk his college drip, like what he wears as he's teaching? I mean, you look through any like style magazine, and it's that would fit in today. Still looking for sure. Good, still looking good, even as he's adventuring. Whether it's slice and diced, drenched in sweat, half open, or fedora, like it's incredible. Like the silhouette alone. Like
he makes it look good. And I think that silhouette is like the thing that kind of makes this movie. It's that silhouette of Indiana Jones.
Yeah. Where they're digging in for the Ark in Egypt and the sun setting.
Yeah. And that scene where he walks into Marion's bar and you see his silhouette up on the screen. Yeah. It's iconic.
The cold open itself, you don't even see Indiana Jones for the first 3 minutes of the movie. You see like his whip. You don't see his face, and when he steps into frame, he's in the shadow first, and he steps in, and it's just this super cool. It's like automatically, oh, this guy is freaking awesome. Which the adventurer who never dies, always survives. Like you kind of want this like invincibility feel around him. I think there were some stereotypes that this movie kind of got off the ground. I think they ushered in a lot of stereotypes. There's a lot in this movie, JD, a lot of like maniacal evil laughs. Did you like, was that something that like you took away from it? Just like a lot of maniacal laughs.
All over the movie there was maniacal laughs.
All over, which speaks to this like campiness, like, oh, this is just like super like ridiculous, but you're like, oh, they're Nazis, they're the worst people. Also, like I think Nazis are like the best bad guys in any movie. It's like aliens
it's either
and
Nazis or Russians.
Right. And aliens we've never seen, we don't think. Dinosaurs, we've seen fossils, but so Nazis, we know the evil, and they're just such a good bad guy. Like this is like the first Nazi bad guy movie I think of. Now I'm sure there are others, but it's just been a large cultural impact in my life. I mean, 81. I mean, there are legit like war movies, right? But like posing them as like uh
Is Steven
antagonists.
is he
Yeah.
Jewish?
That would be my guess.
I think he is. I think he's Jewish, and I think that's kind of why he
Mm-hmm.
put Indiana Jones up against the Germans, just to kind of like
I mean, yeah.
fight back against, like,
And then he did it in Last Crusade, and I
Hitler.
think they're in the Dial of Destiny too. Like, why not? Like, I could watch every movie of Indiana Jones punching a Nazi and hearing that thunk, that hard punch sound. Like, oh my gosh. I think they also like kind of begin the stereotype of like travel maps as like how to get to a destination to somewhere else. It's just like, oh,
Yeah.
we're gonna
First
show a
movie, I
map.
think I saw that.
We're gonna show a map and then just draw a line and hey, you're gonna be there.
Sit on the plane and watch the red dot. And now we are in a new location.
Yeah. What are some of your favorite scenes, JD?
For me, the opening is definitely, one of my favorites, just because of it. It has that video game vibe to it, where he's like, trying to like evade the booby traps and switch out the totem with the sandbag. I really like that scene. And the other scene that I really like is where he and Marion are on the plane, and they like jump off just in time to like run away from that giant explosion. I don't know, I really love that scene for whatever reason.
No, it's
What
incredibly.
about you? Well, what's your favorite scene?
Yeah. I mean, the opening scene I think might be my like one of my favorite scenes in cinema, and I'm trying not to exaggerate. I host a sports podcast, which I might be prone to exaggerating in sports podcasting. I don't know. So I'm trying not to exaggerate, but this truly is one of my favorite movies. And that first like 3 to 5 minutes is just incredible. I mean, it's things that you like dream of and you can like put yourself in as like the hero. It's very video game-esque, and I have to think video games look at how they structured either these set pieces in their leveling. So I think that first scene I really like the bar scene in Nepal where you meet Marion and she has this like this is the very next scene after he gets like you got to go find the Ark. He goes to Nepal because that's so Marion is the daughter of his archaeological mentor, who devoted his whole life, Ebner Ravenwood, I think, or Abner, I don't know how, to Abner to find the Ark. Marion is his daughter. Indian Marion had a falling out. And so he goes to see her because her dad had a piece that showed where the Ark was if you were in the certain room at a certain time with a certain link, stuff, blah, 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 whatever. And so that whole scene was awesome where she's in a drinking match. Indy shows up. The Nazis show up. Indy re-shows up to sit, and then it burns down, and now they're partners. So I really like that scene. I like the a few scenes in Egypt where like the guy with the big sword, Indy shoots him. That I think that's a really
yes,
that's a fun
just that segment. That segment.
Yeah.
He just pulls a gun out and shoots. I'm like, okay, guy, like get away from me. Like,
and from that moment where he thinks Marion is dead, he costumes up and goes to the dig site, realizes they're digging in the wrong spot. Like that is fascinating for the next like 20 minutes. And then it gets to the plane scene, which is what you're talking about. It's just an incredible like 20-30 minutes of cinema.
Yeah, this was, like I said, when I first watched this movie, I had no idea what the story was about, no idea like what was happening. I just knew there was explosions and Nazis and shooting and a whip and all kind of crazy stuff. So that was one of the things that I didn't understand until I watched this movie as an adult, like what was happening. Like, how did Indy know that this guy was digging in the wrong site? And then you see that guy who burns his hand on the little medallion, and he only has one half of the medallion burned on his hand, and so he doesn't see the backside where it says he has to deduct a few feet from
Mhm.
the staff lane. So that was something that was fun to kind of watch as an adult, like
Yeah,
really understand the story.
there is a critique in the movie, JD, out there that says Indiana Jones didn't contribute to the advancement of the plot, or like he could have been removed from this story and the same thing still would have happened. Have you heard of this like
I
story?
have no, I have not.
So there's this train of thought that says Indiana Jones is pointless in this movie and does nothing and didn't contribute anything to any part of the movie. Um, and I've always struggled with that thought, because they would say that the Nazis would continue to dig and find it there anyway. Like they were close enough that they would have found it, and the same things would have happened without Indiana Jones.
If that were true, it would have taken them a lot longer than what happened. Like Indy, like
He found it,
yeah, he found it. He progressed the storyline. Like,
found it, stole it, and then they hijacked a pirate ship, stole it back, and then he hitched a ride on a sub. Like of all the things that like is inconceivable, him riding on the top of a submarine from like pretty much.
so did he ride on top of the thing? Like, did it not submerge at all? Did it just like coast?
It didn't show him getting in, and it so because I watched this twice. It because I was like, wait, what? Like does the whole travel map thing, and he's on top of the sub waving to the pirate ship. Because they're like, there he is, which he swims from the ship to the sub, which is also insane.
Insanity.
He's like on the ladder hanging on, and then it goes to like the crossfade travel map line, and it goes from like India all the way to like Australia, like the in between Australia and Japan, like some weird island over there, which who knows how long that is, just chilling on top of the sub, but they never go under. So I don't know.
I didn't get that either. I was like, did he get in the sub and then like escape as soon as it surfaced, or like did it just not submerge? Did it just coast through wherever it was going? I don't know.
So I thought that was kind of absurd. And just for the fact of how cool the opening of the arc is, I like that scene's pretty cool too, man.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that scene kind of makes the movie in a way. It's like this is something they've been looking for, the entire film. And what got me was how Bellic wanted to do this ritual, and the Germans are like, we don't want to do that. We just want to take this thing back to Hitler. He's like, well, what if it's not all in there? So he kind of like talks them into like opening this thing, only to kill everybody on the block. Like, it's insane.
So if you had to pick one scene, the quintessential, if you had to pick one scene to show someone to say this is who Indiana Jones is, what are you showing?
I'm showing the opening.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like it's one of the best opening. Now, all the Indiana Jones movies, I think, have really cool openings, but this is definitely the best one. Like
they use that pyramid and they make it part of like the movie.
Yeah,
right. That's like I think is it Paramount Pictures, and it's like the mountain, but then in all of the Indiana Jones movies, the mountain turns into something in the cold open.
Yeah,
which is
I think that's really pretty cool too.
Yeah, I agree. Oh my gosh, it is just incredible. Cool. Hey, have you ever heard of the Wilhelm scream?
I have not.
So this is a scream that's in every Star Wars movie. And it's in this movie a lot. It's a really unique scream, and once you hear it and know it and recognize, you're going to hear it in a lot of stuff. I'm going to play the audio now, and then we can talk about it. So it sounds like this. That's what it sounds like, and it is all throughout this movie. It's like this over the top like scream that this guy recorded so long ago, but it's just used when someone's falling off a cliff or falling off a moving car or getting tossed by a tauntaun. I don't even know. But it's just this awesome scream. And it's like the most fun, overly dramatic scream that I've ever heard. And I'm so glad it's in this movie all the time. Like you're going to hear it a lot more once you know this. It's called the Wilhelm scream. And I'm so glad Lucas and Spielberg use it because it's so much fun. Do you know what I'm talking about?
So it's one of those things like once you hear it, like you're never gonna unhear it again. Okay.
Right. Because you're gonna hear it like, oh yeah, I've heard that scream. That's what it's gonna be like with you. And I'm sure people listening are like, oh yeah, okay. So that has a name. It's the Wilhelm scream. That's in here quite a bit.
Okay.
There's a lot of like, I've been shot dramatically falling, like really just like overly selling, like getting shot or punched, which it just adds to the fun, adds to the campiness.
I mean, the Foley artist had so much fun with this movie.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Does that bug you how it's like so like campy? Does that bug you?
Not for this movie, just because of the nature of the movie. If it were, like, I don't know, if it was any other like movie, it maybe it would, but this is perfect for this movie.
Yeah.
It's perfect for this genre of movie.
It's perfect for Harrison Ford. It's perfect for this movie. I think it's come back to like hurt the franchise though, because people started taking it serious, right? Temple of Doom, the sequel, super serious, super like awkward and weird and culturally insensitive. Last Crusade, just equally as like it swings the pendulum the other way. It's very, very campy again. And then there's not a movie for like 25 or so years. And I think people expected it to be serious, and they watch Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which is just as campy and just as unrealistic as face melting from the Ark. I enjoyed the crap out of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. I enjoyed it. It's Indiana Jones. Okay, so
I do not count this. I do not count it at all.
No,
not at all.
Why don't you count it? Because it's too unrealistic.
It's way too unrealistic. It's way too unrealistic.
The guy pulls a heart out of his dude's chest.
And my God. Okay, when they showed the aliens at the end of that movie, that was just like
they're not aliens.
What is it?
They're beings in between. They're interdimensional beings. JD.
They are insanity. Okay,
it is nuts. It is,
and that was enough for me. I was like, this is jank. I do not count it. I refuse to buy it. Like, I'm not watching it. I can't.
Dude, it's all jank, man. It's all jank. When was the last time you watched Last Crusade?
Last Crusade, it's been maybe a year or two before, like, since I've seen it. I mean, I watch these movies, every couple of years, but Raiders, I watch quite often. Like, I'll watch this movie like once or twice a year.
They're all very janky.
In their own way.
I mean, just the character of the guy who had his hand burnt. Absolutely, he might as well be a Crystal Skull alien. Dude, that dude is insane. The two times he, like, obviously, like, intentionally removes his hat to reveal the world's worst haircut.
Oh my gosh! Like, bro, keep that hat on. Like,
but he also has hair. It's just clearly buzzed.
What is that?
It is,
dude.
His mommy loves him. I'm sure. but my guy's struggling, and just dude, one of the freakiest, creepiest characters in cinema. Like that. Are you kidding me? That's not realistic.
He makes a great bad guy, though.
Incredible bad guy. But this isn't Dick Tracy.
No, but it's like he's wearing all black all the time. It's like you're in the middle of Cairo and he's still like wearing like a black poncho.
Super pasty. Sala, which also I think, did you mention John Rhys Davis, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sala plays Gimli in Lord of the Rings, for people who are unaware of who we're talking about. This is this guy.
A phenomenal actor.
Phenomenal character actor. He's in a bunch of other stuff. Let me see. There's something else he's in. Anyway, but yeah, he's over the top acting, which I'm sure we'll talk about whenever we grade the movie acting. because I'm curious to see what your grade is for that. I think the campiness and the unseriousness of these movies are lost on people with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, because the other three are just so well done. Too much time had passed, and when it wasn't it didn't rely as much on practical effects as the other ones did. I think it really hurt Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, but I still had just as much fun. It's not as good as Raiders or Crusade, but people are too hard on. It's like Phantom Menace for me. Just don't get me started on Phantom Menace. I'll ride for Phantom Menace.
I mean, even though I absolutely hated that movie, I am really looking forward to the Dial of Destiny.
Yes, me too. Anything else, JD, you want to cover before we get to the grades?
No, dude, I'm ready to jump into this.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, JD and I are going to grade Raiders of the Lost Ark. Stick around. The Fanfare Podcast. We'll be right back. Thanks.
Hey, this is JD from the Hyman Podcast, a place to have hard conversations revolving around the overall human experience. We tackle topics such as racism, the American justice system, and even headlining news such as the Alex Murdaugh saga. This season, we're going to continue to tackle more hard-hitting topics, and I'm excited to take you on that journey. The Hyman Podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. The Hyman Podcast is produced in conjunction with the Hyman brand and is part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hey everyone, this is Don Mike Mendoza, the host of Producing While Asian. Join us in Season 2 for more conversations with actors, artists, producers, and more from Broadway, Hollywood, and beyond, every other Wednesday on the Press Play Podcast Network.
Hello, Brooks here with the Books with Brooks monthly book club podcast. Listen, it is beyond time for you to join a book club. I know you've been thinking about it, and everyone's doing it. Here's how Books with Brooks works. We read one book a month, and then we talk about it. Classics like Stephen King's The Shining, debut novels like We Are the Brennans by Tracy Lang, and tons of other compelling, life-changing stories, one book and 1 month at a time. So come read along with us and then listen in.
What's up, everyone? Chase Smith here, host of the Chase Smith Podcast, and my podcast reflects who I am. My hobbies, my interests, my passions, my curiosities, my careers, my questions, and my family. I'll spend time talking about all types of sports, movies, TV shows, trending news stories, and other cultural events, and even faith. This is who I am, and I hope I can get to know you as well. Join me on the Chase Smith Podcast, and let's have some thought-provoking conversations, only on the Press Play Podcast Network.
We are excited to announce that we are joining the Press Play Podcast Network. The Krypton Report podcast is dedicated to all things Superman, Supergirl, and the planet Krypton. We discuss movies, TV, game, comics, and all things DC.
So join me, Tyler, with my co-host James and Jania.
So join us as we explore DC's multiverse.
Look for Krypton Report on all social media platforms.
All right, here we are. We're back. Chase Smith, JD Hyman, talking about Raiders of the Lost Ark. JD, let's do our movie grades. Whenever we do movies, this is kind of the main structure of this podcast, where we're just going to, like elementary school style, give a movie a grade off of these categories. The first category, JD, is acting. Now, this is performance. This is acting performance. Speak to that a little bit. What are you thinking about here?
Okay, so when it comes to acting performance, there's your main characters, and then you have your supporting cast.
Mm-hmm.
And I think your main characters have to act to the supporting cast. And if the supporting cast isn't good, it does not allow the main characters to really shine. And I think in this film, the supporting actors like Jonathan Rhys-Davies really help kind of propel Harrison Ford's character. So in terms of acting, I'm giving this movie an A.
Interesting. I did not give this movie an A in acting.
What do you give it?
I gave it a B. I think there's no better Indiana Jones. I think some of the Nazi stiffs are some of the best Nazi stiffs that like Nick Rush. Sala, John Rhys, that's a little much. Like I think he was definitely chewing up the screen time he got. I could have used maybe a couple minutes less of him. I really liked Indy's and Marion, their chemistry, but only when they're together. I don't really think by herself, Marion Ravenwood, which is played by Karen Allen. Right. I think there's a clear tier in like, Harrison is he is the movie star. Together, incredible chemistry. But yeah, I don't know. I gave it a B.
I mean, if anybody was over the top, it was Karen Allen. Like,
yeah. But I guess I really like. So, for instance, the very end of the movie when he leaves, like at the very, very end when he leaves the meeting, and she meets him on the stairs, and like she's walking up, he's walking down, and then like she walks down, he walks. Like it's just they have incredible chemistry, and so together, I really, really like them together. But there's a couple times when she's talking to like the Nazi people, like the French archaeologist, his Belloc, his like Belloc, yeah, his like rival, like woo. I would have given her to the French guy too. Like, all right, let's go. See, I gave it a B. I give the fly in the French guy's mouth. I give that fly an A. Did you see that fly?
Yes.
We didn't even talk about that. So I gave it a B. Mostly because everything else is going to be so high for me. I just didn't.
Okay.
Yeah. So I gave it a B.
Okay.
Star power. So we were talking pre-show how we differentiate star power from acting. And I really like how you worded it. Acting is like performance, main and supporting. The star power is just movie poster, name recognition from their previous work. Is that a big enough draw to get you in the seats? Like, can someone carry the film, essentially, is what we're talking about.
Yes. And for me, star power is another A.
Okay.
I mean, Harrison Ford alone, like, makes this movie. I mean, he takes it to the next level. And without Harrison Ford, there is no Indiana Jones. There is no. I mean, Tom Selleck is a pretty, well-known guy, but I don't think it would have had the same draw if he were Indiana Jones in this movie.
Yeah, I agree. I gave it an A in star power as well. I mean, he's the only name on the poster. Harrison Ford, and he carries them. I mean, he's on screen all the time.
Yeah, he carries the movie
on screen all the time. He had just finished filming Empire Strikes Back. And so at this point in his career, people only know him as Han Solo, but they love him as Han Solo. Steven Spielberg said when he saw Empire Strikes Back, he immediately knew that was his Indiana Jones. When Selleck couldn't do it because they didn't have a lead for their movie. And I mean, this made him a super duper star. And I have to think it stayed in theaters for so long because
over a year. Like,
yeah. Let me read off his IMDb after Harrison's IMDb after Raiders of the Lost Ark, because I feel like he probably did whatever he wanted to after that. I
mean, he did Air Force One, which is another one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, that was 97. So yeah, Empire Strikes Back 80, Raiders of the Lost Ark 81, Blade Runner 82, Return of the Jedi 83, Temple of Doom 84, Witness 85, Mosquito Coast, haven't seen it, Frantic, haven't seen it, Last Crusade 89, Presumed Innocent Regarding Henry, Patriot Games a fugitive. And so this kind of clear and present nature sets his career, Air Force One, 97. I mean, yeah, this is it. This makes him a movie star, because I mean,
Without a doubt.
This got him out of that Star Wars mold, and then launched another franchise. Right? They were able to make now 5 more movies because of what it's been able to do. Cinematography. How does this movie look? Composition, JD. Where you at here?
Okay, so cinematography is really important to me as a photographer. One of the things that you want to do is to make art with your photography, and I think there's a very similar thing when it comes to cinematography. There are a few scenes in this movie that kind of highlight the cinematography of this film. And one of those scenes is in the opening, when the camera is kind of like panning across the brush, and you kind of see Indiana and his little cohort behind the leaves. And then there's that scene where he enters Marion's bar and you see his silhouette.
Mm-hmm.
And when he's escaping in the opening scene, and the plane is like flying off and is flying off into the sunset almost. And that other silhouette scene that you mentioned where they're digging up in Cairo, there's a lot that goes into planning out how the cinematography of a film really kind of drives it, and it pushes the story to the next level.
Yeah.
I'm going to grade this with an A-.
Okay.
I think there are definitely some areas where there could have been some different angles, or it could have been shot a little bit better. But an A-. I'm gonna go with an A-.
Interesting. Yeah, cinematography, I think you're trying to tell a story without words, right? Can you communicate the energy of a scene without words, or without taking away from what the actors are trying to do? Steven Soderberg is a director in Hollywood, and he has a blog, and he made a post, JD, about this movie. And what he did was he removed all of the dialogue, and he made the movie black and white. And it's a silent black and white Raiders of the Lost Ark, and it is mesmerizing. It is incredible just how you're able to follow along with and the actors do an incredible job of, because it's over the top, they're overly, like, it's super like animated. They're animated, but just in how it's shot, how they're able to communicate, whether it's like power in a scene or tension between characters, it is a masterclass, and that's all kind of what this blog is about. I'll post a link in the show notes if you're interested. I give it an A+. If you're going to play the plus minus game, man, I got to go A+, because I don't think it's like the visionary that Spielberg was able to kind of put from paper to film. I think this is one of the best examples of that.
It's a good example. There's a few scenes that I feel like could have been shot a little bit better, and one of those is in Cairo when they're being chased through, the little town area down there, and it's just a bunch of chaos, and they're like, they're running this way and they're running that way, and it's like super cartoony. And I thought, okay, that could have been shot a little bit better. The other scene is the truck scene where he's trying to get the arc and then take out the bad guys. I thought that scene lasted about 5 minutes too long.
Yeah.
And again, it could have been shot a little bit better. But I think considering the technology and the times, it was masterful for its time. But today, that could have been shot. I feel like a little bit better.
That's fair. That's fair. I do feel like looking back, I lost interest in that scene. I'm like, geez, he's still in this truck trying to steal the ark. Which we missed this stereotype, man. Just the poor aim of bad guys, right?
Oh my gosh.
I know that started in Star Wars or whatever. Like they can't hit the broad. He gets shot in the arm, but it's almost like he gets shot by like a Nerf gun. Maybe they make guns different back then. I don't know, but man, the Nazis can't shoot.
No, it's like, are you guys? It's almost, it's cartoony. It's like
they can't shoot and they have no logic. Like it's not like this guy's smarter, faster, stronger, and a perfect shot. I mean, he is, but slam on the brakes. Like, just get him. Stop the car. Stop and get him.
I mean, the scene in the market in Cairo, it was just like, it was just a little too cartoony. Like, they're stabbing each other. Like, the word, it's like, he like stabs his friend. Like, okay, like, did you not practice your swordplay at all? Like,
it's rough. Sound design, man. Sound design.
Sound design. Okay. Again, I love movies so much. I built a movie theater in my living room.
Yes.
And this film, it was remastered in 4K with Dolby Atmos. And even before it was remastered in Atmos, it had one of the best soundtracks that I've ever heard in a movie.
Yeah.
And for the technology being what it was, back then, they did an excellent job at designing the sound in this movie. And rewatching it in my theater and having that spatial atmosphere of sound, it was incredible. It was one of the best movies sound wise that I have played on my surround sound system. If I wanted to show someone my surround sound system, I would play Indiana Jones so they could get the full effect of the sound design in this movie. A+.
There are a few, JD, a few movie scores that move me, that almost bring me to tears, that automatically transport me to a desert in Cairo or to the outer rims of space. And John Williams does them all. Let me tell you. There are a few that might take me to the Shire or to like the oceans with the Black Pearl or whatever. But dude, John Williams is special. And the fact that we get to hear that indie score in the theater again is a treat. I might tear up. I don't know.
It's incredible. And just his theme, like the Indiana theme, like there are some movies, or I don't know, there's some movies or even TV shows where, certain characters have a theme. And sometimes you're like, okay, that theme is like a little bit overplayed and they should probably stop playing that so much. But this movie, it played at just the right time, for just the right length every single time.
Yep. It's incredible. One of the best themes. I give it an A+ as well, JD. How can you not? Not only the theme music, but like the punches are so deep and just like connect every time. The explosions are great. It's phenomenal. It's the best. And I love it. I love it. All right. Costume design. Let's talk about how the movie looks.
Costume design, I'm going to give a little bit of a different score.
Yeah.
So we have Indiana Jones and his get up,
His
which
drip.
is phenomenal, absolutely
Did
phenomenal.
they start the hot college professor like stereotype?
Oh, yes,
Absolutely. I
absolutely.
love you on her eyelids.
Like, what
My
was that?
goodness, what a
Like,
freak!
how do you concentrate like with that in the front row? Did you notice that his entire class was like 90% females? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
but the film is set in 1936, and I think they do a fantastic job at capturing, the costume of that era. I think that Karen Allen, her costume designer was, not paying attention. She did not,
yeah.
she did not pass class that day, or she was like busy doing stuff because she was wearing some stuff. I'm like, what is she wearing? Like, why do they have her?
She was the only one that reflected the I feel like everything else is timeless. Like the Nazi uniforms, even the archaeological digs, whatever however you feel about like the very stereotypical Egyptian get up, right? Like that was very much just like, here's a white sheet, put like make it a turban and like whatever. But yeah, like what was Marion wearing?
It kind of, I don't know. I don't know what Steven Spielberg was kind of going for in that respect, and it kind of reminds me a little bit of Schindler's List, where you
Yeah.
have your little pops of color every now and again.
Mhm.
And I think that's kind of what we have going on with Marion. They're just trying to make her stand out. Like,
Yeah.
we get that she's a woman, but it's like you have to, you got to dress the part. Like, why is she wearing a bunch of gowns throughout this movie? It just didn't fit it didn't fit. Everything else though was on point, with the exception of Marion. Everything else was on point, and because she was such a big part of the film, it kind of like brought the score down a tad for me.
Yeah.
And because of Marion, I had to go with a B on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's the right grade. There's not a better hero costume than Indiana Jones. It's just like super cool. We talked about his college drip. The Nazi uniforms, great. I don't know what they officially look like. I'm not like a World War II buff, so I can't tell you if they're accurate. I just know there's an army uniform with a Nazi flag. That's a Nazi uniform. That's fine. Like, yeah, they're the bad guys. Even his like French Balak or Bellic, or I don't even know. Bellic. Like I bought that he was like a French like archaeologist who didn't want to get like his hands dirty.
Total Frenchman. Like,
yeah. So that was great. Yeah, Marion. Yeah, it was super. Like, I don't know what like they were trying to communicate with that. Yeah, I think B's the right score there. And I think she would enough to give it a C, but everything else is so strong. Almost to like a B plus. Just because everything else is so iconic and so strong. All right, screenwriting.
Now, this movie is not, I don't think the writing is the strongest. I don't think that was the purpose of the movie, because you have some movies where, the writing is what is kind of driving the story. And in this film, I feel like the action is kind of what's driving the story.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as writing goes, I'm gonna have to go with C. However, the movie is just so, there's just so much fun and excitement that it kind of like makes up for it in a way.
Yeah, we put plot and screenwriting here together. I don't know if that's a good idea, because I think we're just going to do screenwriting, because I think plot, Yeah, I think that can be conveyed in screenwriting, but I think screenwriting is important. Screenwriting is the backbone of a film. It provides direction for actors. It provides direction for storyboards. It provides the entire thing for a movie. Like you start with the script, you start the screenplay, and then you move
The
to
skeleton.
Yeah. And so it's hard to say that, well, hey, like the dialogue was, off here, or what if they would have done this, because the movie translated so well to film. And in the behind the scenes, man, Harrison raved about this screenplay. Like they just loved it. It was so fun. And they stuck to the screenplay. Like whatever Lucas and Kazan had there, like they made sure to do it. And so, because I think originally I would have been like gone with you, JD. And it's like, well, kind of, it's super corny, and like they, like what were they? Like logically, what isn't working? Do they just like write themselves into a corner and, oh, we'll put them on a sub and that'll be over there? But I think the good outweigh the bad so strongly in this movie. I'm gonna give it a B on screenwriting.
I think that's fair. I think I think, the writing is one part, acting it is another part.
Yeah.
And being able to tie the two together is the art of it all. And one of the scenes where I felt like the writing was a little off was the scene where he has the rocket launcher. Where he got the rocket launcher from, I'm not sure. It's in the script. And he's about to blow the ark up, and it's the dialogue between Bellick and Indy about, he's telling Indy, like, at heart we are archaeologists and we want to discover things. You are not going to blow this thing up. And I think it was just a little bit out of character to write it that way, that he was going to blow up the ark. And so that was one of the places where I kind of thought, I wasn't a fan of that segment. It could have done without, for sure, but I think they needed a way to get Indy and Marion at that ritual together, tied up the way they were. I think they could have written that scene or that transition a little bit better than, hey, I'm gonna blow you up with this rocket launcher. Like,
yeah, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. It's like, no, you're not. I had to check because I got really nervous that if we're giving this a B and a C and like screenwriting and costume, it didn't win an Oscar for that, and it didn't, thankfully. You know what it got an Oscar for? Sound design. So our A pluses were like on point there. It got an Oscar for art direction, which is storyboarding and kind of like making sure that that's there, film editing, and best visual effects. So we're tracking here, JD. We are tracking. So I give it a B in screenwriting, and I think somewhere in the middle there is where it needs to be. All right, I have two more. Directing. What are we giving Spielberg on his fourth movie?
Spielberg is getting an A for me, just because, I mean, he told this story masterfully. A movie is made up of several parts, and the only way to bring all of that stuff together is the director. The director brings everything together. And I think with the story and the sound, everything, Spielberg does a masterful job at combining all these different elements and bringing this film to life in the way that it is. And I think his vision is evident and captured and filmed exactly the way he wanted it captured and filmed. I think it's masterful. A+.
Yeah, I'm not going to be crapping on probably any director we do this movie on and say, oh, I would have done this or that, because that's just absurd. But this is one of my favorite movies. Spielberg is my favorite director, and I have 0 notes for Spielberg on Raiders of the Lost Ark. Is what I'm gonna say. Excuse me. Yeah, 0 notes. 0 notes. It was fascinating to watch some of the behind the scenes. It's from like the 2004 DVD, I think, or 2008. I don't remember when they released. They had like the holographic like front cover DVD. And they might be on Apple, like on the streaming movie as well. I don't know. But yeah, man, it's fascinating to go back and watch some of these like documentaries they were making as they were making the movie. So yeah, that was super cool. A+. This was Spielberg's first like gunfight. He had never filmed a gunfight before this movie. And it was super cool to see. If you're interested, definitely go check that out. Final one, JD, number 8 here, movie poster. What do we give Raiders of the Lost Ark movie poster?
This is my favorite movie poster of all movie posters.
Yeah.
I'm giving this an A. I mean, I love this poster. Like,
yeah,
it's beautifully designed. Like, it captures every element of the movie is in this poster, and I think that is you don't see that a lot these days. You don't see that a lot, and I think for back then, I think movie posters were a big deal, and this is probably one of the best movie posters out there.
Yes. I agree. I give it an A. This is going to be the next movie poster that I purchase. It's just when you look at it, it says the one I'm looking at here, the Indiana Jones, a new hero, from the creator of Jaws. It's just like, that's awesome. But it's just Harrison Ford in his face and his chiseled jaw, and he's wearing this hat, and he just looks like, oh yeah, he's going to find me some treasure. We're going to have some adventures. It's incredible. The other one where he's like with the whip is also very cool. Like, I don't think you can have an uncool poster from this movie. I love it. Absolute, like, classic, legendary poster. I give it an A as well. So here I'm looking at the grades, JD, and here's what I think I want to do. I want to give it a GPA, because we have 8 subjects. We have 8 classes. And I'm looking at a review here. I gave 5 A's and 3 B's. JD, you gave 6 A's, 1 B, and a C. All right, so we tallied up all of our scores. JD, as we mentioned, 6 A's, 1 B, 1 C, came out to 29. We gave an A as a 4 value, B is 3, C is 1, D is I missed it. C is 2, D is 1, F is 0. I had 5 A's and 3 B's. We both come up with 29, so we give Raiders of the Lost Ark at 3.625. Do they make the honor roll? Is that 3.7?
They got honor roll. They definitely got honor roll.
Honor roll. Are they on the dean's list?
Not quite.
Do they graduate with honors? Do they get one of those gold tassels?
They definitely get a gold tassel.
Okay, you get to go along with your 4 Oscars. You get a gold tassel. Congratulations, Raiders of the Lost Ark. JD, you get a gold tassel for this episode, the Fanfare Podcast, episode 1. We're done. We did it.
So exciting.
So amazing. So amazing. Our next episode, I'm going to be re-releasing an interview I did with the director of Searching and Missing, Will Merrick. And then we're going to come back here in July. I'm going to be with Tyler Patrick, who hosts the Krypton Report. And we're going to be watching The Prestige for Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer. You going to join us, JD?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Good. Have you seen The Prestige?
I have.
It's one of Tyler's favorite movies. It's early Nolan. He's toying with some things.
Yes. Very early Nolan. He's a special character.
Yes. Yeah. There are things that he tries in The Prestige that you see in his other movies that he expounds on.
Yeah.
And I'm excited to watch it again because it sometimes I just don't have to think, and that's why I like Raiders of the Lost Ark. I don't have to watch it 20 times to try to figure out what a top hat means. I can just watch it and say, oh yeah, Indiana Jones has a whip. He's going to swing on a vine and he's going to get something that's gold. That's great. Where's my popcorn? That's all I want.
Oh my God.
And Indiana Jones delivers. JD, you delivered. This was awesome. I so much loved rewatching it and talking about it with you. I'm glad we both revere it highly in our hearts.
I love this. This is awesome. I really do. I really do think this was like, one of the best ways to start this podcast. One of the best films to, kind of kick this show off with. And I'm pretty excited to see where it goes.
It's one of the goats. Well, thank you all so much for downloading and listening to the Fanfare Podcast. Shouts to the Press Play Podcast Network for making this possible. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at Press Play Pods. We always follow back. JD, have a wonderful week, man. We'll talk soon.
All right. Can't wait.
Peace.